It was intense. It was a nail biter, but the Dallas Stars come away with a huge win against the Calgary Flames in last night's big matchup. On today's episode, I'll break down the entire game, talk about the things I love, talk about the things I didn't love so much, and then I'll send you on your way for the weekend with a little preview of Sunday's game versus the Vancouver Canucks. It is a Friday edition of Locked On Stars.
You're Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans. Welcome back to the Locked On Stars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Dane Lewis. It is Friday, November 5th, and we are getting to celebrate a Dallas Stars win for the first time in what feels like a very long time. Just about 2 weeks to be exact since the Dallas Stars last won a game against the Los Angeles Kings in their home opener. Feels very nice, feels very refreshing. Like I said in the cold open, it was a nail biter. It was very intense, back and forth. And Calgary is a very good team. And so we expected a dogfight going in, or at least I did. And the Dallas Stars came through and they snagged two huge points, in a game that, many people probably didn't expect them to win or have a chance. But Dallas comes through and they, like I said, snag 2 points. They get a huge win. It wasn't overtime. It's still up for debate, still up in the air, if you will, whether or not the Dallas Stars will actually win a game in regulation where they only need 60 minutes. That is still TBD so far this season, but we will take the wins however we can get them, no matter how stressful they are. Whether or not it is good for my health is up in the air, up for question, and I'm sure many of you can relate. But before we jump into the breakdown of the game, I just want to take a moment and say thank you for stopping by today's episode. Whether you are a recurring listener or this is your first time here, thank you for making a stop by Locked On Stars. Thank you for making Locked On Stars your first listen of the day. Be sure to subscribe or follow the podcast if you do not do so already. I would really appreciate it. Leave a review if you like what you hear. Those are always really nice and they help me out a ton. And yeah, be sure to do that. Subscribe and follow if you don't already do so. It's absolutely free and it helps me and the Locked On Podcast Network out a ton. But without any further hesitation, let's jump into a breakdown of last night's game, starting with some of the things that I really liked. And I feel like I've maybe been hitting on this point all week and maybe over the past several games, just due to the disappointing results we've been seeing. But I think the biggest takeaway from last night's game was, again, Dallas's ability to respond to adversity. And this is coming from several different guys, several different kind of storylines, I guess, either coming before the game or during the game. And guys, faced with challenging situations or maybe not ideal situations, and they responded and made the most of it and were able to make an impact on this game that ultimately helped Dallas get a win. Starting with Denis Garrionoff, a guy who was a healthy scratch on Tuesday's game, to many people's shock. There was a little bit of outrage on social media of like, why is Rick Bowness sitting this guy? And people were posting his game winner against Los Angeles, so on and so on. But he did not play in Winnipeg on Tuesday, despite him being healthy. And simply, Rick Bowness is just expecting more from him. He knows the kind of player that Denis Garrionoff has the capability of being. And he didn't play him on Tuesday, but he played him last night. And Denis sure came through with a nice pass on the power play, from a nice pass from Miro Heiskanen, who we'll talk about a little later in this segment. But Denis comes through in a big way. And like I said, he scored on the power play. Dallas now has a power play goal in the last 3 games. So that, is a small other positive amongst some of the other positives I'm going to be talking about from this game. But the Dallas power play had been an issue early on this season, but it is slowly but surely coming to form. And maybe, hopefully, at some point can be in conversation for one of the best or most consistent in the league, because a power play goal in the last 3 games is really nice. And hopefully they can continue that trend on Sunday in Vancouver. Blake Como, another guy. And I sent out a tweet talking about him going from the role of villain to hero in like 10 seconds and pretty much, the snap of the finger. He committed an awful penalty with a high stick to the eye. I can't remember who he hit now. But just terrible, blatant, like obviously should have been called. in a situation that puts Dallas in a 5-on-3, where Dallas has 3 players on the ice and the other team has 5. And he commits that penalty, and then comes out of the penalty box and then ties the game with just seconds remaining in the intermission. Michael Raffl also deserves credit for his effort to help set that up as well. Of course, Blake Como gets the credit for the goal, but Michael Raffl did his part to help make sure that that goal happened. And Blake Como just giving off, big Prince Zuko vibes is what I was thinking during that moment in the game. For my fans out there, my listeners out there that are fans of Avatar: The Last Airbender, the old Nickelodeon TV show, you see Prince Zuko had, spoiler alert, I guess, even though the Avatar: The Last Airbender has been out for like 20 plus years. So if you haven't seen it at this point, and it's on Netflix, so if you haven't seen it, go watch it. But there is a little bit of a spoiler, I guess. So be warned for that over the next 20-ish seconds. But Prince Zuko goes from, the big bad in the show to eventually, switching and becoming the good guy at the end, going through a really nice character arc from villain to hero. And Blake Como did that, except not over 3 seasons of television, but rather in about 10 seconds, which I don't know why that was the first thing that popped in my head during the game. But it did, and I love it, and love Blake Como for, again, responding to him making a mistake, and he says, "Hey, let me make up for it." And he did, and he gave Dallas a ton of momentum going into the second intermission. And 2 other big guys that stepped up, big names that stepped up, if you will, are guys that stepped up last game in Winnipeg, and those are, again, Dallas's 2 leaders. That the captain, obviously Jamie Benn, but also Tyler Seguin, who, if Jamie was not the captain, I think Tyler would be the captain of this team. Both of those guys step up. Tyler scoring a goal in the third period to give Dallas a 3-2 lead. Obviously, the lead does get blown, and the game goes to overtime. But Jamie Benn comes through for his team, delivering the dagger, the game winner in overtime. So Rick Bowness has been challenging his veteran forwards to step up and play to the level that he knows they can play at. And so far, over these past few games, Tyler and Jamie haven't done that. I think even Alexander Radulov has started to do that a little bit. Joe Pavelski has started to, find his groove. Even if he's not necessarily scoring goals, he's helping the offense run like a well-oiled machine. So all around, really good things from our veteran forwards, especially Tyler and Jamie in last night's game. And Anton Hudobin, 30 saves on the night. He was kind of facing adversity all night with, some of the goals that happened to go by him. The first goal takes a weird bounce off of Lucic of Calgary off his stick. Again, as a goalie, you got to be prepared for that kind of stuff, but it's a hard play to make. And obviously, Hudobin was not ready for that bounce or that ricochet. The puck goes by him. The second goal he gives up, it's hard. Obviously, he got beat, but it's hard to put the blame all on him when he's, his team only has 3 guys on the ice because his teammates are committing dumb penalties. But Anton Hudobin, despite giving up 3 goals, did make some big plays down the stretch and in overtime as well for the Stars. So great effort from him all around. Really like what I saw from Anton Hudobin. As a whole in last night's game, though, he did obviously give up a few goals. But, I think 2 of those, you don't necessarily give him a pass on, but you look at it and you're like, I get it. So moving on from that, kind of just some overall thoughts on the game before we move on to our next segment. It just kind of seemed like a drag at times, especially in the first period after Garrionoff's goal, and the first half of the second period, if that makes sense. So I guess the first 10-ish minutes or so before Calgary, took the lead, basically. Kind of a slow, boring game, and that just might be how Dallas has to win games, or at least put themselves in position to win games. I don't know how many games we're going to see this season where the Dallas Stars win or even have leads by more than 2 goals. I imagine the Stars will win in regulation at some point, and they can assert their dominance offensively. Don't know when that will be. Hopefully very sooner rather than later, please. But it's just going to be a thing that I think we're going to have to be used to this season. I think we knew that going in, that this is a defensive-minded team. They're going to have to rely on the defense to shut down, the opposition, which there were stretches of the game where Dallas did that really well. It seems like they kept a lot of the star players of the Calgary Flames in check for most of the game. And especially guys like Lindholm and Goodrow. It felt like, those guys got shots on goal, but I feel like Dallas did a really good job containing them at certain parts in the game. And so, that's just going to be how the Dallas Stars are going to have to play hockey and win games, it seems, this season. So hopefully that is a recipe that will continue to work, where the defense holds strong and maybe the offense seems to be finding a little bit of rhythm. And so maybe that will change. But yeah, kind of a boring game at parts, but it definitely got intense. at the very end in the third period and in overtime. My star of the game, my player of the game, was almost Blake Como, just for the memes. But of course, it has to go to number 4 of the Dallas Stars, Miro Heiskanen, with a 3-assist night, 3 points on the night. He is building a serious resume to compete for the Norris Trophy this season, which of course I predicted he would win. And I think he's making me look good right now, but he's also making himself look good, which is way more important. He was a pivotal player for the Dallas Stars tonight, despite not scoring a goal and despite a weird injury scare in the third period. Hopefully Miro's okay, and we're able to see him back on the ice on Sunday in Vancouver. But a big night for Miro Heiskanen. He was involved for the team all over the ice, played very, very well, which is nothing new for him this season. Loved what I've seen from number 4 so far through 10 games, and I can't wait to see what else he continues to bring to the table as time goes on. Coming up next, we will talk about some of the things that I didn't necessarily like from last night's game, because, of course, there's going to be negatives in every game, win or lose. But that's sports, and we're going to take a deep dive into some of those points after this break. But before we do all that, I want to take a moment and say thank you to one of the sponsors of today's episode, and that is Built Bar. It's the holiday season, and that means lots of good food with family and friends. Thanksgiving is coming right around the corner. Christmas is going to be right here after that. Like I said, lots of good food, lots of good time with family and friends. But maybe you need or want something that is maybe a little better for you, because there's going to be a surplus of food that is delicious, that is tasty, but maybe at the end of the day isn't the best thing to be putting in your body in large amounts. So it's the perfect time for a Built Bar. Built Bar is the new holiday dessert. You can feast on something delicious and feel good about it. One slice of pie has upwards of 300 calories, and that's on the low end most times. Most Built Bars are only 130 calories and only contain 4 grams of sugar with plenty of protein. So replace that coconut cream pie with a coconut Built Bar, or go for a raspberry Built Bar instead of that raspberry pie. There's lots of great, fantastic flavors to choose from that can basically be the same as almost any pie flavor that you can have at Thanksgiving. Share some of your Built Bars with your family members as well. You're going to have people that are maybe looking to start their New Year's resolutions early and get on the health grind, and you can point them towards the direction of Built Bars and help a friend or family member out. There's nothing like Built Bar on Black Friday either. Mark your calendar. Black Friday will be huge for Built Bar. Be sure to check out their website on Black Friday. Go to built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15 and you'll get 15% off your order. Again, use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Next on today's episode of Locked On Stars, your first listen of the day, just wanted to run through a few quick things. Sorry, words are hard apparently. From last night's game that, I wasn't a huge fan of, things that of course can continue to be worked on and hopefully addressed by the team and coaching staff going into Sunday's game against the Vancouver Canucks. And the biggest of those being another issue that I had with the team on Tuesday night, and that is penalties. Penalties are bad for any team in any sport. But the Dallas Stars seem to commit them at literally the worst possible times, when either they have the lead or they have a chance to build some momentum and gain some ground. They have some traction going for them. And it just seems like someone's like, well, I guess I should commit a penalty now. So thanks for that, guys. The Stars had 10 penalty minutes tonight. Man, some of them just came at very, very bad times. I already talked about Blake Como, just trying to go, medieval on people and gouge people's eyes out with the high stick to someone's face while Dallas was already down a man on the penalty kill. Moving them down to 5-on-3, where obviously Calgary scored. Calgary's power play is very good this season. And it's scary enough, playing them 4-on-5, but then to have to play them 3-on-5. Of course, the Calgary Flames were going to find the back of the net, and that they did. And obviously Blake Como made up for it, but still not an ideal outcome from the performance of Blake Como in last night's game. Luke Glendening also committed the penalty at one point late in the game. And he's one of the last guys that Dallas needs to see go to the penalty box, because, if someone's going to commit a penalty, it doesn't need to be him, because Luke Glendening is one of Dallas's best penalty killers. And that's part of the reason that he was brought to this team over the summer in free agency, is because of his ability to kill the penalty very well. So it doesn't help whenever we are on the penalty to have a guy like him sitting in the box. Alexander Radulov, he committed a penalty late in the third period as well. That eventually led to a Calgary 6-on-5 attack, because they pulled their goalie while they had possession of the puck, and they scored and tied the game at 3. Obviously, again, Dallas was able to come away with the win, but not ideal for Alexander Radulov to be committing a penalty in that situation. So just need to see a little bit more discipline from the team as a whole. And I feel like penalties are something that every team kind of has their bouts with every season, and there's just some time in the season. And I don't think it's like a bad issue. It's not like an epidemic by any means on this team as of right now. Just something over the past 2 games that, is maybe on Tuesday cost Dallas the game, and then almost could have cost Dallas the game, or made the game worse for the Stars, and maybe they don't come away with a win. Maybe they don't even come away with a point. So just would like to see more discipline from the team, especially in moments where they have the lead and have opportunities to build momentum. When you have the lead, I feel like just it would be to the strength of the Dallas Stars to play a little more conservative. And that includes how aggressive you play and how hard you hit people, or how you use your stick when defending. Obviously, these guys, are having to make quick on the fly decisions because it's a very fast paced, fast moving game. So obviously, some things happen. They don't have time to really think about what they're about to do, or accidents happen and they don't know, they move their stick and they don't know that they're going to hit someone, which not excusing Blake Como by any means. But just something, to point out. And maybe I'm nitpicking, but that's just something, I feel like the penalties kind of killed the Stars a little bit and almost put them in a position to lose the game whenever they had several opportunities to, hold their ground, hold a lead, and try to build some momentum against a good team. Because we haven't really seen Dallas do that this season, where they establish a lead and build on top of it and build some momentum. Have yet to see that, and hope to see that soon. And I think part of the way to do that is to commit less penalties in those moments. Another thing I didn't like is Roope Hintz still has not scored a goal. And goodness gracious, does he deserve it? I sounded like an old person there. Goodness gracious, I don't know. But that's just how I feel. Roope Hintz deserves a goal. It's not that he's not trying. He had only 3 shots on goal, but he's playing well for Dallas. He's skating well. He's putting himself in position, to contribute to his team, to score. He's hitting his teammates on passes. He just really needs to get things going, because I think once he's, breaks the seal and scores, that more goals will come and that his confidence will build. So that, not necessarily something the team needs to work out as a whole. I just don't like that Roope Hintz has been held scoreless to 10 games because he's such a talented player. He's such a gifted player, and he really needs to break the seal, get his first goal, and then get his offense going for the rest of the season, because he has a lot of ground to make up. But I believe he can do it, and hopefully his first goal will come in the next few games. And honestly, when it comes to fixing some of these mistakes, or at least fine-tuning this team, of course, you can do that in practice. You can do that while talking with the coaching staff. But I think Dallas has a great opportunity to fine-tune some things over the next few games that they have on their schedule. Because over the next week or so, Dallas has a pretty favorable schedule. If you ask me, just kind of looking at it from now, which honestly, at the start of last week, I thought they had a favorable schedule against the Columbus Blue Jackets, Vegas Golden Knights, and Ottawa Senators. But we all know how that went. But now Dallas seems to be playing a little better, coming off a big win against one of the best teams in the National Hockey League, and the Calgary Flames. And this is kind of what their schedule is shaping out like for the next few games. They have Vancouver on Sunday on the road in Vancouver, which we'll talk about in the next segment. So I won't focus too much on them right now. Then they go home for 3 games where they play Nashville, who is currently tied with Dallas for 3rd in the division at the time of recording this. I believe St. Louis is still in the middle of a game, and that they were up by 1 last I saw, but the game hasn't ended at the time of me recording this. By the time you hear this on Friday, the game will have been over, and so the standings, I don't think it'll affect how the standings look, especially where Dallas and Nashville stand. But Dallas and Nashville kind of neck and neck in the division right now, and those 2 teams always compete and always give the fans and the spectators really good games to watch. So that should be an exciting game, but I think a game Dallas can win. They'll have Philadelphia at home. Philadelphia off to a nice start this season, but again, Dallas playing at home. Also, Dallas seems to play up to their competition when they play good teams for the most part. So that should be a really fun, exciting game. Then Detroit, who, they're not terrible. They're not one of the better teams in the league right now. Certainly a good team with a lot of talent, but again, another winnable game because they're playing at the American Airlines Center. So of course, they have that 6th man in the crowd supporting them every step of the way. And those are going to be some big games for the Stars, because then things get pretty challenging right after that with a 4-game stretch featuring Minnesota on the road, and then back home 4 games against St. Louis, then the Edmonton Oilers, then the Colorado Avalanche. So Dallas is coming off some momentum from this game in Calgary. They need to use that to win some games over this next week. And then they need to use the momentum from that to carry them into the next week where they play some of the best teams in the NHL up to this point. So I'm really excited to see how this team continues to respond to the adversity that they face. They're seeming to climb out of the pit right now. Hopefully, last night's win as they step in the right direction, but only time will tell. Coming up next to close out today's show, I'll give you a quick preview of Dallas's game versus the Vancouver Canucks that's happening on Sunday night. But before we do that, I want to take a moment and say thank you to another sponsor of today's episode, and that is BetOnline. BetOnline is back and better than ever with a new web interface for the start of basketball season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. And to close out today's episode of Locked On Stars, before your weekend gets started, just want to send you on your way with a little preview of Sunday night's matchup in Vancouver against the Canucks. At the time of recording this episode, the Vancouver Canucks currently sit at 6th place in the Pacific Division with a record of 4-5-1. Their wins are against the Philadelphia Flyers in a shootout on the road, and then they also lost to Philadelphia at home just a few games later. They have an overtime win against the New York Rangers, and then they have 2 regulation wins against Chicago and Seattle, who are both not good, both bad teams. So this game, from the initial outlook, is very winnable for the Dallas Stars, despite being on the road. Closing out, game 3 of a 3-game Canadian road trip, this game is very winnable for the Dallas Stars. I think that they are better than the Vancouver Canucks. Dallas has played teams that they are better than and lost. But again, I think that this team is slowly but surely starting to turn a new leaf on the season. So this is a huge opportunity to showcase their abilities and maybe, win a game in regulation and win a game comfortably, maybe. Vancouver, like Dallas, has played a lot of close games so far this season. So likely that will not happen. We likely won't see, a huge blowout win from Dallas or a win where they win by 2 or 3 goals. This game, more likely than not, could be very close and a nail biter, because both these teams are accustomed to those kind of games. So this is a match made in heaven for that kind of storm to be brewing, a close matchup between the Stars and Canucks. The Canucks do play Nashville today on Friday, and then they'll play Dallas on Sunday. And the last team to play Nashville, then take a day off, and then play the Dallas Stars was the Calgary Flames, who the Dallas Stars just beat. So if history repeats itself, right? So when confirmed, lock it in right now. The Dallas Stars are beating the Vancouver Canucks. I almost said Nashville Predators, which is just kind of funny that it's like Dallas is following Nashville over these past 2 games in Calgary and then to Vancouver, and then they're going to play each other in Dallas on Wednesday night. Funny how that just happens to work out. Some guys to watch out for on the Vancouver Canucks roster. JT Miller, 11 points so far this season, leads the team. Definitely he will need to be a guy that Dallas needs to keep their eye on, as well as their captain, Bo Horvat. Again, words are hard. I misread his name, even though I have it typed right in front of me on my screen. He leads the team in goals so far this season. And there's also going to be a lot of crossover of guys playing against their former teams this game. Former Dallas Stars Justin Dowling and Jason Dickinson are both on this Canucks roster. And Braden Holtby, who I'm guessing will play just because we saw Hudobin on Thursday. And I assume we'll see Braden Holtby on Sunday against Vancouver. Just my instinct gut feeling. If he does play, he'll be looking for revenge against his former team, even though it feels weird calling the Vancouver Canucks his former team because he only started 21 games for them. Naturally, the Washington Capitals are, the team that many hockey fans are going to associate Braden Holtby with. But nonetheless, I guess kind of a revenge game for Braden Holtby matching up against his former team of a season where he played 21 games for them. But speaking of Braden Holtby, the goalie matchup should be really fun, assuming we get Braden Holtby and Thatcher Demko in the nets. Holtby has had a pretty good season overall. Nothing spectacular, nothing terrible. A .924 save percentage, while Vancouver's goalie, who started most of their games, like I said, Thatcher Demko, boasts a .923% save percentage, which might change if he plays tonight against Nashville and then plays Sunday. His numbers might look a little different, but don't know if he's going to play, or he might not play tonight. He might not play Sunday. We might see their backup goalie, Yaroslav Halak, who has saved 44 out of 48 shots in 2 games so far this season. So not sure who we'll see in net for Vancouver, but I'm almost certain that we would see Braden Holtby play for the Dallas Stars on Sunday. Just my guess. Wouldn't be upset if we saw Anton Hudobin based on the way he played last night against Calgary, but should be an exciting game. I mean, like I said, kind of in the last segment, Dallas has a huge opportunity to come away, with 5 points on this road trip, which would be huge. And going into this road trip, I don't know if I expected them to come away with that many points. Obviously, we'd love to see them come away with 6, but we can't change what's happened in the past. We can only control what is in front of us. And this would give them huge momentum going into a 3-game homestand against teams that they should match up really nice against, and should be a lot of fun to watch. So really excited to see how Dallas competes on Sunday, because it'll set the tone going into this next week. And then we need this next week to have, good results to set the tone for the next week, where we're playing some really, really good competition. So it all builds on one another. In this season, we're finally in the thick of things, in the nitty gritty, and I absolutely love it. This season has been unpredictable and crazy. I did a whole segment on yesterday's episode talking about Calgary and how, they might get Jack Eichel from the Buffalo Sabres, and I stay up and I get everything ready. I have everything set to publish. I go to bed, and then I wake up at like 6:30 in the morning, and I'm about to leave my apartment at like 7:15, and I see that Jack Eichel's going to the Buffalo Sabres. And so I'm like, well, great. Now I have a podcast episode that's been published, because my episodes come out at 6 every day. And so, the episode's already out, and I'm like, great. Now I spent, 3-4 minutes talking about Jack Eichel maybe coming to Calgary. Didn't happen, but that's the life of someone covering sports media, which is fine. And, it could have been way worse, just kind of funny. But like I said, this season has been wild. It's been crazy, unpredictable, and I can't wait to see what else happens, because we still have a lot of season left. And that's really, really good news. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Stars. Be sure to tune in on Monday for a breakdown of Sunday night's game. Thank you again for making Locked On Stars your first listen of the day. Now go make your second listen of the day, the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast with host Scott Cullen. That man can help you win your fantasy hockey league, guaranteed. You can find his show on all your podcasting platforms for free. Be sure to subscribe and follow the show. If you don't do so already, tell your friends about the show. Leave a review if you like what you hear. I really do appreciate all the support that you guys give me, all the interactions on social media. You can follow me on Twitter at Dane_Lewis. That's at DANE_Lewis. You can also follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Stars. You can find the show on YouTube at Locked On Stars. Thank you guys again for all the follows and subscriptions and support. You guys are the best. You guys are the best fans in hockey, and I truly do appreciate you. Hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you back here on Monday.